Hey there. I have read your discussion board posts this morning and have provided feedback to you in the associated rubric. This discussion board was pretty straightforward. It asks you to consider the ANCC credentialing of a nurse executive board certified and the American College of Health Executives credentialing for executive leadership, and have you kind of look at what the pros and cons of those are, and then be able to say, this is what I think I'll do. Interestingly, the vast majority of you chose to consider the ANCC credentialing, and that makes sense. It really is driven to being very nursing focused. So it was really interesting to see your insights with that. One of your classmates, Crystal, did a really nice job in a reply to your classmate Carla in talking about the value of looking at your ongoing continuing development or continuing education. Crystal wrote, Proverbs chapter 4, verse 13 discusses how instruction is like the lifeblood of an individual. Believers are instructed to guard this knowledge and not let it go. Continuing education allows us to increase our knowledge and become better leaders. I want to always remember that knowledge is the lifeblood of my profession, just as biblical knowledge is my spiritual lifeblood. I believe that I will never know everything there is to know and will continue to seek new knowledge. I think Crystal did a beautiful job describing the importance of finding new ways to know things, always seeking a new topic, a new understanding of things. That really is the commitment to lifelong learning. And not only is that a biblically sound principle, but it's also supported by the American Nursing Association and their scope and standards that is the underpinning of your MSN. The expectation is as you lead others, you need to continue to grow and be at the front end of innovation and new ideas and new ways of looking at things, so that you can really properly present those insights to your team because because you're constantly growing. That journey of always of having new knowledge, of learning new ways to look at things is encompassed by the credential. The credential is kind of the exclamation point of the journey of new knowledge. And when we say that we are a nurse executive board certified, that's really our way of saying I'm an expert, and I have an objective measurement to say that I really do have expert levels of knowledge related to being a nurse leader. So I would encourage you to be thoughtful about what that journey looks like for continuing your growth and development and knowledge base. But then where do you put the exclamation mark? It's okay if you are not in a formal leadership role right now and you're not really sure where that role may land for your career. I'm a big believer that all nurses are leaders, that if you were at the bedside and you're a really good bedside nurse leader, you're still coordinating care and providing supervision to a team that's providing care. It's okay for you to look at it from that perspective. So just be open to looking at ways that you can demonstrate your expertise in your area. I also truly believe that if you have a clinical specialty, that the first step in credentialing should be in your clinical expertise. If you're a surgical nurse, look at your surgical credentialing. If you're a peds nurse, look at pediatric credentialing, and then do the exclamation mark or the broader credentialing from a leadership standpoint. You can do that with a nurse executive. My primary role is being a nurse educator. So my first credential is a certified nurse educator credential. And then I'm also a nurse educator, a nurse executive board certified. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness in approaching this assignment. The only APA suggestion I have has to do with how to manage direct quotes. At this level in your academic journey, you should not be using direct quotes very often. They're kind of a zebra, not a horse. You should be able to synthesize what you've read by other authors, be able to put them in your own words, and give them context and meaning in your writing. Every once in a while, you're going to land on a zebra that's just so uniquely written, so perfectly worded, that it is appropriate to do a direct quote. When you have to do a direct quote, you want to embed that direct quote in the body of a sentence. So let's say that you were reading an article by Smith and Brown and you found a direct quote that had 10 perfectly worded words. You would write, according to Smith and Brown, parentheses 2017, comma, quotation mark, and then you would put the exact phrase or words or sentences from Smith and Brown, period. You put the punctuation inside the quotation mark and then in the direct quote with a quotation. The important thing to note is that you need to put it in the context of a sentence, according to Smith and Brown 2017, comma, that's in the body of a sentence, and that the ending punctuation goes within goes within the quotation marks. Again, discern horses and zebras. Know that that direct quotes are zebras, they're rare, and when they need to be done, put them in the body of into the context of a body of a sentence. And the last thing, if you use either through a synthesis and you use an in-text citation or a direct quote, whatever you're doing, whatever method you're doing, be sure to give it context. Why did you tuck that into the paragraph? Why is it included? Give it context for meaning so that it doesn't look like you're just filling space in a paragraph. Okay, let's talk briefly about next week. Your spiritual philosophies paper is due by Friday of this week. You are being asked to compare Porter O'Grady and Malik's work of the 10 Spiritual Rules of the Road to O'Brien's work, which are the servant leadership behavioral themes. The idea is that you will look at the similarities between these tenets and principles, and then the differences between the tenets and principles. As I said in my feedback video last week, don't waste time giving a summary of all of them and then doing a synthesis. You want to briefly introduce the topics and then begin your synthesis. So similarities and differences. I'll tell you that as you do the analysis and you begin to look at how they're similar and how they're dissimilar, that things are going to gravitate easily in one way or the other. And there are going to be a few that just don't match up with anything. And that's okay. But the vast majority of the tenets and principles need to be included in the body of this paper, and it needs to be an analysis. So you should be able to group them together and be able to say how they're similar and how they're different. The next piece of this assignment, once you're done with that analysis, is that you're going to be able to say, how are these ideas exclusive to each other, or can they be integrated in some meaningful way to be applied to practice? And then finally, you're going to be able to explore how you're going to use the things you now know about these principles and tenets in a change in practice. So this isn't a reflective thing. It's having you look at the tenets and principles and be able to say, because I know this now, this is how I'm going to apply what I know now in the future as a nurse leader. This is what this looks like practically for a change in my leadership behaviors. It is so vital that as Christians in a hospital setting, that we aren't just nurses when we're nurses, but that we find a meaningful way to integrate our spiritual walk with our professional walk. And depending on the environment you work in, sometimes you can truly walk your walk and be the hands and feet of Christ and not have to guard yourself against what would be considered appropriate in a secular work environment. And sometimes you work in a secular work environment. The vast majority of my career, I have worked in a secular work environment where I couldn't go up to someone freely and be able to say, how can I pray for you? Or even be able to say, I'm praying for you. But that doesn't change the fact that we can walk the walk and that we can walk in an example. So I do want you to be thoughtful about this exercise. I so encourage you not to make this a check the box exercise, that you really do think about meaningful value of Porter O'Grady and O'Brien's work and how you can serve others, lead others in a Christian nurse leader method that gives you a sense of accomplishment, of success, and obedience to God's calling in a meaningful way. So I do want you to give that some thought. This is a paper that's going to require level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings if you're doing a good analysis. Make sure that you are using all the APA formatting from a title page to the level headings in the reference page. The other thing you want to make sure you do, your reference page needs to match up the body of your paper. If you've used an in-text citation, then it needs to be in the reference list. Reconcile those to make sure that they match before you submit your final paper. And the other thing to do is go through your reference list. Make sure that you don't have gray literature in there. And gray literature would be considered something that isn't scholarly, that isn't peer-reviewed. So things like dissertations or blogs, opinions or commentaries, all of that would not be peer-reviewed material. You also want to use caution when you look at using websites. This paper doesn't really lend itself to using websites because I'm asking you to go into the literature for support. So be thoughtful about your reference list and make sure that the material you're using is scholarly and appropriate for the topic that you're covering. I have this week 7 video is going to be the last feedback video you get from me. I'm not sure whether that makes you happy or you'll miss me and the puppies. Know that You will get an email from me that says, hey, week 8 work is done next week. It's been my experience that after you've submitted that final thing on Friday, you're peacing out and you're ready to go into either switch gears to start a new course, or you're ready to just tuck your head and take a nap. So the feedback video just for week 8 just doesn't get watched. So I don't do that. Know that if you have any questions or concerns about your grade or the experience, please touch base. You are expected in week 8 to make sure that your course, that your practicum evaluations are done, and that your nurse preceptor has done their evaluations as well. Let's see if there's anything. Oh, course evaluations. I value your feedback. My hope is if you have struggled in this course, or you this has not been a really good experience for you, that we're already having conversations about how we can right that ship and work and move forward. If not, please touch base. I'm happy to discuss it, but absolutely use the course evaluation. That's how I grow. I seek your feedback. I'm in this little bubble where I don't really get to see your eyes to know whether I'm getting the deer in the headlight look, or people hiding under the desk. My hope is that this course has grown you, that it's stretched you, and that you know something now that you didn't know when you started the course. Know that I'm here. Know that I'm praying for you. Even when you leave the course, I'll still be thinking about you and praying for you, and hope for your success. Be in touch and let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I'm here. Take care.